welcome back. It's Friday, so I thought I'd go ahead and do a Friday read since I was off work today. Go ahead and catch you up on some of the things I've completed and what I'm currently reading. It is nonfiction November, but with regards to my audiobooks, I haven't really found anything in an audiobook format that I wanted to read that was nonfiction. So I just went with the sci-fi one I had downloaded and I wanted to eventually get to. It's by John Scalzi. This is Fuzzy Nation. And apparently this is a contemporary retelling of a sci-fi book written in the 60s by H. Beam Piper called Little Fuzzy. This is the first of a trilogy. I really like this interesting little character. This is the Fuzzies. They're kind of monkey-like in body and cat-like in head form. But anyway, it's a sci-fi book. It features our main character. This is Jack Holloway. He's a surveyor on a planet working for Zero Corporation. He is at first not a very likable character. He's rather headstrong. He's a troublemaker. He does not respect authority. He's also a disbarred lawyer now working as a surveyor. And he comes across this sort of rich seam of some kind of mineral deposits or something on the planet. But just before that, his contract is sort of terminated by Zero Corporation because they're kind of fed up with him and his lack of following orders, and apparently he's suspected of letting his dog Carl detonate explosives. This was something that brought contention earlier in his kind of surveying career and broke up his relationship with his former girlfriend, who's a botanist. And he did kind of get out of that original charge, but again, that's sort of what broke up his relationship. But when they discovered that he has uncovered this rich seam, they kind of quickly renegotiate things and this contract and make him an offer and stuff. But during the course of events that kind of unfold, he comes across these strange little creatures, which he names Fuzzies. They almost seem like a family unit. There's about 4 of them, and he's not too sure. Are they a sentient form of life? What does it mean to be sentient or an intelligent form? That categorization, if they fall under that, would stop the mining completely on this planet. And of course, Zero Corporation does not want this to happen. He doesn't really want it either, to tell you the truth, because that would affect, the money he's making. He would not be able to mine anymore. So there's all this like courtroom scenes that kind of take place throughout the story. Lots of world building and kind of learning about these creatures and the planet itself. And usually I'm not a big fan of courtroom stories. I find them kind of boring. This is anything but boring, particularly with our character's kind of former background as a lawyer. He is manipulative. He finds ways to work the system and get around, and it was just really fascinating. I don't want to make it sound too, like I said, technical in the lawyer aspect of it. It was very intriguing about these characters too, and I felt very moved in certain passages regarding events that take place with these characters, with these creatures. And I just found the story really fascinating. It is narrated, again, by Will Wheaton, who does quite a few of the John Scalzi books. They have quite a great working relationship, and I think he does a fantastic job of creating these characters or bringing them to life. One thing I do notice, and I've noticed this with his other books too, that he does, it's kind of repetitive where you hear, like in terms of the characters, Jack said, Sutton said, Sullivan said, Isabel said. He uses that over and over again, and it does get rather repetitive. But then at times I don't notice it. It's hard to describe. I found myself thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, okay, said. But then it helps because it keeps you knowing, especially with it in the narration, who is talking if the voices aren't completely differentiated enough. But I think Will Wheaton does a fairly decent job of that. I think even the nature of the dialogue, what is being said, Scalzi, he conveys that well enough that sometimes they could have left some of those out or changed something up a little bit, but it does get a little overly repetitive on that aspect. But I still didn't mind because I just enjoyed the story so much. I loved learning about the Fuzzies and just how that determination comes as like what makes somebody an intelligent being. What if an alien race came and landed on our planet and determined that we weren't sentient enough by their standards? So yeah, it was very, very fascinating, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I always look forward to another John Scalzi book. In terms of what I'm currently listening to, I'm continuing the Colliding Worlds trilogy. Yes, it's a trilogy. The Colliding Worlds trilogy by Rachel Alkus. I originally listened to this quite some time ago, and then I re-listened to book one, which is Collision, during my Apocalypse-a-thon, and now I'm on Implosion. This is the first time I'll be listening to the second or third book I have. I'll be following up on that one as well. To find out more about what I thought, you can go ahead and search that out on the Apocalypse-a-thon videos, like I said, where I talk about book one to give you an idea what that series is about. But book two is sort of, it's like two alien races battling against each other on planet Earth, and we're kind of caught in the middle, basically. The first book dealt with the perspective of the humans and the one side of the aliens, the Shifians, and now book two is kind of, I noticed it's focusing more on the Drakens, the other aliens in this kind of war that's taking place. So it's interesting seeing this shift of perspective and things from their point of view. So anyway, yeah, I'm enjoying that one so far. And on to the nonfiction books I'm currently reading. I finished my first one of the month, and that was Donna Leon's My Venice and Other Essays. I really enjoyed this. I don't generally read nonfiction. Like I said, I read occasional biographies of someone I'm really interested in. And I'm interested in Venice. I love Venice. I've been there at least once when I was old enough to kind of, really enjoy it. But yeah, I really enjoyed the variety of topics within here. It's not just Venice. That's like about the first 55 pages or so. The topics range from music to animals, men, books, a little bit of everything. Her subjects on Venice included neighbors, her contentious encounters with some of her neighbors, particularly one who loved to have not one but two TVs blaring throughout the night, and her resolution to that was quite funny. There's the problems of garbage, even dog poop was mentioned quite a bit. One of my favorite stories, which was a bit touching as well, was about the beating heart of the city, which is the clock and tower in San Marco Square, and about the caretakers, the custodians of the clock. It sort of runs in the family from father to son, and her discussions with the current custodian at the time when she's writing this. The clock had been taken away for repairs and restorations and stuff, but it's the job of the caretaker to see to that it keeps the proper time, that it's constantly running, the winding the mechanism twice a day. They live in the clock tower, so they have the most amazing view, as you can imagine. And then she kind of mentions that on February 1st, 1999, exactly 500 years from the date of its inauguration, the clock would be put back. So, of course, it's since been put back. And she hoped that the current custodian would be present at the time to welcome it back into its home, but he wasn't. And I thought, oh, how sad, he wasn't there at the time. There are quite a few, like I said, really touching stories. Her encounters with the various animals, like during the summer she would go up to the mountains to live, and she ends up befriending a chicken who lives across the road. She names it Gladys and feeds it crackers and mozzarella, which I thought was hilarious. She was also a bit crazy when it comes to music. She loves opera. She wanted desperately to see Maria Callas in New York, probably one of her last times she'd be performing. And I just want to read you this little passage of what she gets up to try and see it when she can't get tickets. She says, "The day before the performance, all of my efforts to buy a ticket having failed, I went down to the office building of the old Met on Broadway and cased the joint." Don't forget, she's a mystery writer. The next day, I returned after work, hid myself in a cubicle of the ladies' room, and sat there until the building emptied. About 15 minutes before the performance, I took the elevator to the 4th floor and proceeded, I tremble at the memory of my rashness, to crawl across a wooden plank 4 stories up that connected a window of the building with the top of the back wall of the old family circle. No, I didn't look down. It's just unbelievable. The thing she gets up to is absolutely crazy. She talks about her mother's funeral, which was touching but also a bit humorous. And one of my absolute favorite essays within the book is when she talks about about books and writing. And she's at a restaurant with Barbara Vine, another mystery author. I just want to read you some of the passages in this one. It's absolutely hilarious. They're being served, and the waiter's going back and forth, and I'm sure he's overhearing some of this conversation. You can just imagine what's going through his head. "What are your favorites?" I asked my companion. "Oh, I love a good push down the steps." "Or strangling. Yes, I have to admit, I have a great weakness for strangling. There's something so tactile and personal about it." She says, let's see. "Oh, last time I beat a man's head in with a brick," I answered. This is her talking. "It's something I've always wanted to do ever since I was a kid. In fact, I always used to threaten people, if you don't stop doing that, I'll beat you in the head with a brick." The other lady responds, "Yes, bricks and stones are lovely, aren't they? They feel so solid in the hand." She ate a forkful of pasta. "What else? Just this week I was about to stab a man. When I remembered I'd already done it, so I decided to use a garrote." My companion responded, "Delicious pasta, isn't it?" "I've always wanted to use a garrote." It's just like they're enjoying the pasta, they're talking about the food, and they're interspersed with this, conversation about various forms of murder as the waiter's going back and forth. I just thought that was absolutely hilarious. So I really, really enjoyed this. Like I said, I've never actually read any of her mysteries. She writes the Venetian Commissario Guido Brunetti mysteries. There's quite a few of them, so I hope to one day get to them, but I thoroughly enjoyed this. Like I said, it was witty, it was entertaining, informative, and just a whole lot of fun. So the current book I'm reading is a reread for me. This is West with the Night by Beryl Markham. This is a woman who was born in England, raised in East Africa, brought there by her father, who was a horse breeder, an adventurer, and she kind of followed in his footsteps, also becoming a horse breeder and races horses. And she doesn't personally ride the horses, but yeah, she bred race horses, and eventually became an aviatrix. And just a really beautifully written story of her life and her encounters. And I'm currently at page 21 on my reread, so looking forward to delving into that one once again. It's been maybe a couple decades since I picked this up. But yeah, that's what I'm reading so far when I finished. I also have a bit of a book haul now, so I'm going to go and jump into that. I picked up a few, I think I have five books right now. I'm waiting for one more to show up, but I think it's probably not going to be here for a bit, so I'll include that in another one. But these are all Sherlock Holmes related. I picked up More Than an Actor. This is the story of Peter H., better known as Jeremy Brett. He was born Peter Jeremy William Huggins, and later changed his name to Jeremy Brett. Brett, I think he got the name from the inside of his jacket lapel or something like that, if I recall. But yeah, I heard this referenced on the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes podcast, so I wanted to go ahead and pick that up and give that one a read. Also included is Bending the Willow. This is by David Stewart Davies, Jeremy Brett as Sherlock Holmes. I actually read this as an ebook, but eventually decided to pick up a physical copy of it. It was a bit expensive because it's kind of hard to find, but I do enjoy it because it's got a lot of like photographs included within the book. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. So looking forward to kind of rereading it again at one point, but really nice edition of it. Came in really great shape. And I highly recommend that if you're interested in reading about the making of the Sherlock Holmes Jeremy Brett Granada television series. Then I picked up a couple of other Sherlock Holmes books not written by Conan Doyle. Got some feathers growing out of this. This is Sherlock Holmes Murder on the Brighton Line and Other Stories by Mike Hogan. Really nice editions of these. And there's just a collection of short stories. That is some of them. I've not read any of these before by this author. This is another one. This is The Tragedy at Hutton Hall and Other Stories. It just says 2 novellas and a short story written in the traditional style. And so there's these 2 in the set, but I think there are at least another 3 or 4 more. If I like these, I will probably pick up the rest of them. And then the final book I picked up was also inspired by the Jeremy Brett podcast, because they read from this each time, and I just love them, so I just wanted to get a copy of it. And this is Asimov's Sherlockian Limericks by Isaac Asimov. And he writes one for each of the short stories, and what did it say here? Oh, I forgot where I read that now. Well, it says undoubtedly the greatest detective of literature and the most famous person who ever lived, Sherlock Holmes will survive even this cannibalization by one of the most brilliant men and shameless humorist of our age, Isaac Asimov. In addition to his prolific science fiction and scholarly work, Asimov is famous, infamous some would say, for his limericks. He has somehow published 3 volumes of them, and his long association with Holmes among Baker Street irregulars, he is referred to as the remarkable worm unknown to science. Okay, there are 60 stories about the legendary detective, and each immortal tale serves as an inspiration for an outrageous limerick by the best, well, worst, if the truth be told, punster and rhymer known to Western world. So yeah, I had no idea he wrote limericks. But they are great. Like I said, I've been listening to them on the podcast, and I absolutely adore them. So I'm going to read you the one for A Study in Scarlet. Meet the quick mind that restlessly combs through the smallest of clues as it roams, from initial confusion to triumphant conclusion. My friends, here we have Sherlock Holmes. So these are absolutely adorable. There's little illustrations, like here's from the dancing men at the bottom there, the pipe and the deerstalker cap. But really, really enjoyed it. It's a thin little thing, but again, it covers each of the stories. So that is my book haul and my current Friday reads. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you're reading down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.